Okay, great.
All right.
Just look. Let's go.
Okay, let's go. Okay, Josh Perry, man, thank you for joining us on the NS podcast. Appreciate you coming through. We're here today. We're gonna have a discussion. I know you've been a realtor for a little while now. You know, jumped off your career, had a successful launch. So looking forward to getting into that, chatting about that. You know, seeing what you've been doing on the event side, it's amazing. Really,
Awesome.
really love what you've done there. We've been to a couple of the events, and great turnout and just great vibes. So love what you're doing there. Let's dive into it and chat about it. First thing I want to ask you is, I know when did you get into real estate? When did you get licensed?
March 2021. So just like 2.5 years ago.
2.5. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was like, was that during COVID?
Oh yeah.
That was during COVID.
Yeah, man.
Right in the peak before things cooled off a little bit.
Yeah, no, I joined right when things were getting crazy.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting time to start because it was like, you know, going into the years of when I was doing my studying and all that kind of stuff. You know, the market was relatively normal, still on a rise, but not a meteoric rise, right? Like it turned into when COVID hit. And yeah, that absolutely was just like an insane time to be getting into it because it was also a lockdown when I started too.
Yeah.
So like I couldn't go into the office, couldn't really talk to people except through, you know, communications via, you know, text, email, phone, whatever. And then there was a lot of video showings, all that kind of stuff too, which was a very interesting way to get into the industry because you're like, yeah, I'm going to go on all these showings.
Yeah.
And then it's like, yeah, can you just FaceTime me? Mm-hmm. Excuse me? It was kind of weird, but yeah, really interesting time to get into the industry.
Those first 6 to 8 months were probably the best times in real estate in history, right? Those first 6 to 8 months when you got in right up until like the beginning of 2022.
Yeah.
So, and I always talk about sort of how getting into the industry, like during COVID or even during the last few years where things were kind of, you know, really, really doing well and getting into the industry now is a lot different. And then, so what would you say are kind of your, you know, observations from that market to today's market in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a different market. You know, you really have to be out there doing things that are generating business, right? Whether it's, you know, working your sphere of influence or going out and door knocking or, you know, really using your social media presence to build business and build a brand. Back then, if you walked into a room and you were a realtor and there was 20 other people in the room and nobody else was a realtor, people would just be coming up to you to ask you about the market, ask you questions instantly, because every single time someone would open their phone or go watch the news or anytime they would have an interaction with someone, the real estate would just come up. It was the number one topic in, you know, Canada at that time and, you know, even parts of the States as well, right? So in that sense, at that time, it was pretty sweet. Like you literally just walk into a room with a bunch of people that you don't even know. Yeah, you just coyly just put it out there. Oh yeah, I'm in real estate, and then everyone has questions. Yeah, right. So that was it was a cool way in that sense, where yeah, you didn't really have to do a ton of work to get the conversation started. Whereas now, a lot of people are just like, oh, boo-hoo, interest rates suck. Like, which listen, they do suck. I get that, but it becomes a little bit of a tougher conversation to get people to understand that there's still opportunities within this market. Yeah. Right. So it's just a little bit tougher to have those conversations get started now versus back then, I would say.
Yeah. No, 100%. I agree. And it's much more difficult, I feel now, to really get those conversations going. Yes, I really wanted to touch on like the difference between, you know, getting into the business in 2021 and getting into the business now, or, you know, just, you know, the operating in the business now. There's a lot of differences. How do you sort of, you know, how are you able to maintain the business now and keep things moving?
So I think one of the main things now versus back then, they weren't necessarily educated properly back then, but people had a decent level of base knowledge just because it was taught so much back then versus now. It's a lot of teaching. You know, yes, interest rates are high, but that doesn't necessarily automatically turn into there's no chance that I'm ever going to be able to buy a home, or there's no affordability. I get that it is less affordable, but there is ways to go about teaching people and saying, look, we can go and we can buy in a completely different region and allow you to buy there, but then you'd still rent where you live right now, right? And it's just having different kinds of conversations and saying, just opening people's minds back up to the idea of buying real estate. People always say over the last 2 years, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to wait for the market to crash. I'm going to wait for the market to crash when there's less buyers, right? So where are all those people right now? All those people right now are the same ones that are saying the interest rates are too high.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of funny how it goes that way. So it just becomes, it's more conversing, right? You just really need to be able to speak at a high level to people, but dumb it down so that that the general public can understand it.
Yeah.
Right. That there are mass opportunities out there right now. You just have to be a little bit more open to looking. And that's the thing too, man. Like, list price is list price. What it'll sell for is a completely different thing. Yeah. People are still listing high and hoping for the best, but at the same time, if they're 4 or 5 months behind on their interest or on their mortgage payments, if you throw in a lowball offer that covers, their mortgage balance that's owing, and you stick to it, and nothing else comes in, you never know.
Yeah.
Right. So it's different little strategies like that people aren't necessarily thinking of. They just see the list price and they're like, it's still too high. Right. But you just have to have an agent that's willing to kind of, look outside the box and say, yeah, no, I think there's still a chance to make this work. Right. And just, you gotta be patient in a market like this for sure. Yeah. Right. Where, we're not necessarily seeing as much inventory and as well not seeing as much action. So things are sitting on the market. Right. So then people become a little bit weary about going and listing their home too, right? They're like, oh, my neighbor's house has been sitting for 30 days. Well, maybe the average days on market in your area is now 30 days. That's not a bad thing. You just need to be informed.
Yeah, exactly. I feel there's two things. So one thing is I feel like I've been following the market similar to you. I've been following the market for the last year. And obviously as professionals, we got to, stay on top of what's going on. And it's just been so volatile with the way things have been changing, the ups and downs. And, it gets to a point where, you don't even want to talk about it because it's so, confusing and interest rates. And I just did a report more recently about how, we know inflation is up, but the inflation is up, mainly because mortgage rates are up, which are caused by interest rates. So it's like, you can't really even make sense of it all. But ultimately, if you look at what's happened, obviously, 2022 prices have come down and, they were kind of, going in a downward trajectory. Early 2023 came, things started to kind of pick up a little bit in those months between March and May. We saw that kind of, quick kind of activity in the market. The rates went back down after they stabilized. I think and even now with the rates again going up and again going up after that, it's still pretty steady. The market's so the way I'm looking at it is this market in Ontario and obviously in Southwestern Ontario is so strong that, even with all these rate increases, it's still, it's still keeping somewhat steady. Yeah. And ultimately, I've been saying this for a while and this period of instability may last another year or so, but once it's over and once, the things balance out, it's, all these buying opportunities that we're seeing are going to be gone. Right. And I think that's what a lot of people, they don't really see that and they're not, like you said, everybody's always like, I'm going to buy when the markets crash. I'm going to time it. And now it's like, they're not fully ready to go. Cause I don't know what people are waiting for, but.
Well, I mean, that's the thing too, right? Like people always say those things and, that the opportunities do come, but they're not willing to pounce. I mean, like, I was literally at my barber's this morning and another realtor had sent him something and it was one of their clients. They had bought for $630,000, literally less than, I think it was 10 months ago. And they're listed for $499,000 right now. And they haven't gotten a single offer. I think they've had 2 showings. Yeah. Right. That's a massive opportunity. $130,000 drop on price. I mean, I haven't looked at the listing, but they probably overpaid on the purchase, to be honest. Right. But I mean, you haven't gone down that much, I wouldn't say, in that region, right? So it's one of those things where those people, they're underwater right now. They've probably put 20% down as a rental property. So go and throw them a bone, try to put a deal together on something like that. And it can still make sense. Yeah. Right. It's just finding those opportunities that do fully make sense. That's where it becomes a little bit tougher. right? Because there's a lot of properties out there that, yeah, they don't make sense right now.
Yeah.
But there are also a lot that do.
Yeah.
So it's just really becoming a matchmaker for your clients with the right properties. And, it's based off of what interest rates are they going to be able to get their mortgage at, right? Because that also affects things like cap rate and all those different types of things that investors are looking at as well.
Yeah. I know last month, I think the prices at Niagara dropped a little bit.
Yep.
And, when you're looking at some of the opportunities, I feel like Niagara has some of the, the best opportunities right now, just kind of with how the market's shifted there in comparison to other locations. And what are your thoughts on the future of Niagara, kind of where it's going?
I'm bullish on Niagara, man. I like when I think of Niagara has such a strong core community where people that live in Niagara generally don't leave.
Yeah.
There's a lot that are being forced out by pricing right now or pushed kind of to the outskirts, like a Port Colborne, Waynfleet, that kind of stuff, to have an actual house, because they don't let kids my age. Like when we were growing up in Niagara, there was no condos. What are like condos to us were big city things.
Yeah.
Right now, like I grew up in Beamsville. Now in Beamsville, we've got, I think there's 4 with another like 2 coming. Right. So that's where it's like, it's a completely different landscape. But us, the kids that grew up on, I grew up on 5 acres, right? For me to then go put myself in like a little box in the sky is so weird to me.
Yeah.
And I know that's the sentiment of so many people within the Niagara region as well. So those people, a lot of us will tend to just move a little bit further from those bigger city centers, and people from the GTA that are relocating down to that area will kind of move into those areas. And those price points are much more affordable for someone that has a job in, say, Burlington than someone who has a job in Grimsby but lives in Waynfleet, right? So it's just those types of differences that you're going to, but that's where, if we're getting so many people moving out of Burlington because it's too expensive and then moving into Grimsby because it's more affordable than Burlington, that it's just going to keep pushing people back towards the outskirts of Niagara. And at the end of the day, there's only so far to go, right? And there's only so many houses to fill. And that's the thing too, that think of how much land in Niagara is never ever going to be able to be turned into residential properties.
Yeah.
Right? There is so much protected land in Niagara still that at some point they will not be able to build new homes. Right? They will have to continue doing condos because that's the only way that they're able to get mass numbers of new homes.
Yeah.
Right? It's just the only thing that makes sense, and that's where the prices will continue to go up, but it's just a matter of how quickly, and will we see more drawbacks in the future? Probably, but at the same time, I'm always going to be bullish, especially when you think of, like, for an investor, thinking of a place like Welland. Welland was way ahead of the curve. Yes, we do have new legislation within, the province and Canada talking about, adding additional units on your property and all that kind of stuff. But Welland has been way ahead of the curve for so long, where if you had a detached property with a detached garage, and the garage was big enough, you could turn that into a unit. And then if the ceilings in the basement were high enough and you had the ability to put ADU windows and all that kind of stuff, yeah, go ahead. You can have 3 units on a single home property.
Yeah.
What was a single home, right? So you'd be buying that for $550, renovating for anywhere between $150 and $200, and now you have 3 units that you're renting out, and you're cash flowing pretty heavily, right? So it's little things like that, and then you do a refinance, right? And you're pulling that cash right back out and doing it again, right? So there's different little things that Niagara has that, there's just, it's been happening for so long. Other cities are going to be playing catch up for a while.
Yeah, I think that whole process that you talked about, that Burr model, it doesn't work in a lot of places,
100%.
But in Niagara, it's still, it has worked, and it's still there's still opportunity there to find a reasonable investment. Are you primarily focused on in working with investors when it comes to, your clientele?
I would say my clientele is probably like 30 to 40% investors at this point. It used to be kind of the flip side where it was 60 to 70. But it's tough, man. Like I love investors because it's one of those things where emotion gone. Yeah. It doesn't have to do with emotion at all. It's completely by the numbers. Yeah. That's all. That's it. And like, if you find a good deal, they will buy, right? As long as it makes sense to them and they can see the vision, they'll do it. And that's a beautiful thing to have in your back pocket in terms of like a client. So yeah, I think every single realtor should try to have, a good chunk of investors in their back pocket and be able to help them and have the knowledge to actually help them properly. But in terms of me doing that full time, like I like working with investors, but it's not necessarily the be all and end all for me. I love working with first time home buyers. I love working with, people who are just trying to relocate from another city, whatever it is. That's one of my favorite things, to be honest.
Yeah.
Is helping people who are relocating from, say, the GTA and showing them the beauty that Niagara has to offer, right? Like some of my favorite clients I've ever worked with are from like Mississauga and stuff, and they come down and I'll say, okay, listen, so for the first day, we'll go out, we'll do 3-4 showings, but let's also go, we'll do a little drive around as well, and let me show you some of my favorite spots.
Yeah.
Right? And just show them what Niagara has to offer, because most people, when they come down to Niagara, it's Niagara Falls,
Yeah.
couple wineries, what else? That's it, right? They might go check out Niagara on the lake, do a little walk, but that's it,
Yeah.
right?
So what is the beauty of Niagara?
The beauty of Niagara, it's one of those things where it's just like, people always talk about, I forget the actual term, but there's a term over in Italy that's talking about basically living life at a slower pace to just be able to enjoy it, right? And that's kind of how I look at Niagara versus like the GTA. When you're in the GTA, it's hustle bustle, time to go. Same as like when you go to Miami, right? Miami is like eat, sleep, work, repeat. That's it. And then party a little bit here and there. Or if, you just have a mass amount of money, just party the whole time. But that's kind of the way that I look at like GTA versus Niagara. Niagara is one of those places where, people still grind a lot and they work really hard. But there's a larger focus, I think, on just being able to, enjoy time with your neighbors, enjoy time out in the community and all that kind of stuff, where you don't necessarily get that on scale in these bigger city centers. You don't necessarily know, your neighbors 7 doors down all the way leading up to your house as well. Like, you know them to like wave hi, but like you guys don't have barbecues together and all that kind of stuff, right? And that's just, it's the tight-knit communities, and I think that's a beautiful thing to be a part of. Mm-hmm. But that's just one part, right? I mean, there are those other things like the wineries and all that kind of stuff that just make it a really cool place to live as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, people know that Niagara on the Lake has, hundreds of wineries, but so does Lincoln, right? Lincoln, which is Beamsville, Vineland, and Jordan, they have hundreds as well, right? So it's one of those things that people don't necessarily know, but when they come and they get to see it, they're just like, oh my gosh, this is here? Because like you'll literally be driving down a main road, take a little side road, and there'll be 7 wineries that you never knew existed, right? And it's just because they're just off in, the distance because they need the land, right? Where they're up on the escarpment, right? And then you have all the hiking trails and all that kind of stuff too. It's a very beautiful place, and then to be honest, the main things, well, not the main thing, but one of the main things, I hate traffic, man. My drive-in today sucked, right? I hate traffic. Niagara, we get it a little bit, but it's mostly people coming to check out Niagara Falls and all that kind of stuff. If you're tourist destinations during the summer, if you come in, the fall, or if you come in the spring, it's not nearly as bad as it is in the summer, and like nothing close to the GTA. If you time things properly, you're not going to hit traffic, right? And like, there's not many places in the GTA that you can say, I can drive my whole 30-minute distance with no traffic. Right?
I find Burlington is sort of that middle ground where, you can still get within 30 minutes, you can get sort of to the east end of Mississauga or, fairly deep into Niagara without any traffic at certain times. But it's that window of time is a lot smaller, I'd say.
For sure.
In terms of doing it. You only got a couple hours to move. Okay, so tell me, like, back to kind of the first question we had, what do you think is the most important trait right now that a real estate agent needs to have to really be successful in today's market?
There's a few. Number one, I would say, is tenacity, man. You just got to be willing to do whatever it takes. Because, like, as we discussed, it's not easy. It's not, man. And, like, I'm year 3 right now. It's not easy for me either, right? Like, this is definitely the worst year that I've had in real estate, but, granted, I started at such a crazy time. So it's one of those things where it's like, you have to be willing to say, no, like, I'm not going to switch into some other career. I'm going all in on this, and I'm going to do whatever it takes, right? And when you make that decision, you have to follow it with actions, right? You can't just say that and say, okay, hopefully business comes. You have to be willing to go out and do whatever it takes to get business, right? So, whether that's, finding, and that's the thing, some of these things that like other people do, I hate doing, right? Like, people love door knocking. I don't necessarily love it, but I'll do it. People hate being on video. I love being on camera, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, find the things that you actually enjoy and find a way to translate that into a lead generating source for your business.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, people have hobbies, people have things that they're into. Okay, great. Find every single place in your community that centers around that thing or that hobby that you love to do, that is like your passion outside of real estate, and join every single one of those clubs. Join every single one.
Yeah.
And literally just go and meet people, because I promise you that after the numerous times that you're doing the thing that you love with other people that love doing the same thing, you will grow a certain type of bond that when they go and they hear of someone else that's talking about real estate, they will bring you up, right? And it's kind of one of those things where it's just like, you don't necessarily have to do it just to gain business. I mean, you're having fun, but at the same time, like, do it to gain business. Like,
and that's good.
Be a part of your community, because your community will support you as much as you support your community.
That's it. Yeah.
Right?
I love the way you put that. And then tell me about you. What do you think is the one thing that separates you from the crowd as it relates to being a real estate agent?
So I mean, from like a client perspective, I'll do anything. Like, I'm just one of those guys where no idea is too crazy for me. For my first listing video, like, I literally brought out a horse downtown Niagara Falls. Like, I'm that guy where it's just like, if it can be done, let's do it. I really don't care for the naysayers. It is what it is. You guys can have your doubts. You guys can feel a certain type of way, but if I think it's possible, I'm going to make it happen, right?
Yeah.
And as well, one of the things that like clients tend to like about me too is like, I'm super accessible. Like, my phone is literally right there.
Yeah.
And like, my phone is always right by my side. In most of my videos that you see on my page, my phone is actually in my hand.
Yeah.
Right? Because like, that's where it is 24/7. Well, not 24/7, but pretty close to it, right? Yeah. And one of those things is just like, clients sometimes, they feel neglected by the realtors, right? And it's like, mine never do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's one of those things where I'm able to just, consistently be there for them. They have a question, great, here's your answer, or let me get back to you, I'm on it, right? And it's one of those things where it's just like, they feel taken care of through the whole process.
Yeah. You're gonna have to send me that clip of that horse. And then I'm sure if your phone rings right now, you'd probably pick it up even in the middle of a podcast.
Yeah, we can pause this, right?
Of course. Yeah, that's what it is. That's how it has to be, right? It's like, you just got to pick up the phone when it rings. That's part of the business. So, cool. So that's good. Let's dive into the housing cooperative.
Cool.
Let's talk about the housing cooperative. I love what you're doing there. I love the whole idea. I love the tagline. The tagline, resonates with me more than anything. Collaboration over competition. I just believe in that so much in terms of where things are at. And it kind of took me some time to really, get that mindset, and especially in this industry, because it is so cutthroat and it's competition period. When you that's kind of the mindset that a lot of, I think, realtors have, and kind of coming into a competitive industry, it's like that. But I feel like, this industry is changing, and just business in general, I feel like that's the direction things are going. It's, as much as I want to be the best and I'd like to dominate, everybody and all that, I wish the best for everyone. It's like, I think there's enough to go around for everyone. And I just think there's also a lot of opportunities to collaborate, for the better of everyone involved, right? When it comes to, agents and teams being able to find efficiency by collaborating, being able to, be better. And then at the end of the day, the way I look at it is the end consumer is going to get, a much better service, right? If we're all elevating and if we're all collaborating, then it's just, the end result for, the industry and the customer is just gonna elevate it. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah. And I think you made a really good point that, needs to, I think it just needs some refining, right? You say there's enough to go around for everyone. Yes. But there's enough to go around for everyone that's willing to work. Right. And that's where I think some people get the idea of collaboration over competition wrong. Right? Like, it's still competition. I'm still your competition. You're still my competition. We're both still going to fight for listings. Period. That's our job. Mm-hmm. However, those that are willing to go out and do the work and work our butts off to make things happen, there's more than enough to go around, because there is enough people that are not willing to do the work.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's a big difference, where people look at collaboration over competition. They're just like, why would I collaborate with people? Like you said, iron sharpens iron, right? Everyone who's willing to, release some of what they're doing and help someone else, and then it comes back to them. Like, you both just got better by an exchange of ideas, but like you said, it makes the experience for the end consumer a million times better, and it makes our industry better. Like, we are some of the most laughed at people in any industry across the planet because of the amount of money that we can make, and for lack of better words, for the shit service that sometimes gets put out to the public.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where it becomes, again, are we doing things to, really elevate one another within the industry? Because if we're not, then we're doing things wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I can't sit here and look at someone else who's making a mistake and just laugh at them and say, well, thank goodness I don't do that. Like, no, go help that person become a better agent and offer them support. Because that's the thing too, is one of the main things that I've recognized that I forget who said it when I was so early on in my career, but they said, I'm willing to tell anyone anything that I do in my business because there's only about 5% that will take what I'm doing and replicate it.
Yeah.
Right. There's the 95% that'll hear it, be like, great idea, walk out the door, and it's out the other ear. Right. And that's the big thing where it's just like, you can't be afraid of giving ideas out to people because at the end of the day, 95% of people aren't going to do it. And the 5% that do are never, ever going to forget you for giving them that information and allowing them to elevate their career, right? Like, they will always have the utmost respect for you for helping them out in that sense.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways, right? So I think that for me is like where the idea of collaboration over competition is like so ingrained in me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And I think the whole concept is it could translate into much more than the real estate career, right?
Yeah.
I find, the biggest thing in this industry is the real estate itself, right? And if you can open up doors where, maybe there's investment opportunities, maybe there's investment strategies, maybe there's collaborations, JVs, all that type of stuff. Once you open the door to those kind of opportunities, I think, that's also another element of it where, there's just opportunities to collaborate and explore those kind of opportunities in terms of doing it. So that's, that tagline just, if it resonates well with me, and it means a lot to me in terms of what it is, but it did take a while to kind of get that mindset in terms of doing it. So we were talking about housing cooperatives.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the events that you've had and kind of, what those look like, then what's maybe coming up in the future.
Yeah, awesome. So we've had 4 events so far. We just celebrated a year. So it's pretty
fast, man.
Thank you. Yeah, me and Charles are pumped. To do what we've done in a year is like, it's humbling to know that like we're able to do that.
Yeah.
But it's not us, right? Like, at the end of the day, we're organizers, right? The events themselves, the speakers are the ones that are providing the information. The guests are the ones that really make it, what it is and make it into a community. And really what we're doing is we're facilitating, right? And I'm proud to be a facilitator. At the end of the day, it's something that was needed, and it's something that, is filling gaps within an industry that has a lot of gaps. So to be able to do that and to do it proficiently and well, it feels really good to be able to do that. So, we've had 4 events so far. We've had, I think when I ran the numbers, I think it was like 469 guests total over 4 events, which was like mind blowing to us.
Yeah.
2 in Niagara, 1 in Toronto, and then our last one was just out in Dundas. The very first event that we threw, like, it was such a trip because we did it for free, no ticket, no cost to the tickets, anything like that. So there was no urgency for people to actually grab a ticket. So I think like going into the event, like so we did it at Mansion Bar out in St. Catharines. Shout out to AJ for allowing us to use the bar. He's like asking us like, how many people are we expecting it? We're just like, well, we've got 16 tickets sold. We're just like, I don't know. Yeah. So we're kind of stressing like leading up to the day. And then the way that we run our events, we have about 1.5 to 2 hours of networking before the speakers go on, then speakers, then networking afterwards. Within the first half an hour of the networking starting, like we had 50 people, right? And then it grew up to, I think we had 85 people out for the first event, which like for us, that was just like, I left on such a high that night, just like blown away by the support from a community that, I mean, I was still so new in the industry, right? And it was empowering to know that people saw a need in the same way that I did, right? Where they felt like they weren't necessarily getting all of the information that they needed to be successful within their career from, their brokerages or wherever, right? So, we provided something and they came, and that was a really cool thing to experience. And, that's kind of why we started to run with it, right? So that was the first one. And that one was more so focused on like investing. We had Spencer and Ashley from, I think it's Travel Lux Vacation Rentals. They run an insane system when it comes to Airbnbs and, managing other people's Airbnbs, getting them into the business and helping them automate everything. That was really cool. We had, a guy that's one of the biggest investors over in Belize speaking, Sean Reyes. He was speaking, and then we had Nathaniel Gardner, who's a financier out of Toronto, right? So it was a good mix of people that spoke at that first event, and it was, it was super successful. And then the second one that we had was in Niagara as well. That one we had, my boy Dimitri Giannitsos out, and then we had Kate Broddick, and then we also had Brian Hogman, who then we ended up throwing an event with Brian, right? We threw one with Nathaniel, the one that we did in Toronto, right? And it's just, it's the level of people that we've been able to have that speak at these events. I mean, our last event, we had Ryan Saravelli, the founder of Revel, and then we had Rob Golfi, right, the head of the Golfi team. Like, the level of people that we've been able to get as well is just, it's so, I mean, it's cool, for a lack of a better word. It's cool to be able to pull those types of names because, they see that, the industry needs it as well.
Yeah.
And they agree with the idea of collaboration over competition. Like, some of the stories that Rob and Ryan were just sitting up on a couch and just sharing at our last event, I was just like, really? Like,
that was amazing, yeah.
You're right.
I'm glad I made that one, made it out for that one.
Yeah.
That was good.
Right.
I like the vibe, everything, just, meeting the culture.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an awesome feeling just having, those absolute titans within the industry. Just like, yeah, absolutely, I'll come out and talk. Like, that is such, it's just, it lights a fire under your ass saying like, okay, yeah, we got to keep this going.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the events that we've done so far. And the next thing on our plate right now, I'm going after this to meet with Charles, and we're sitting down to kind of put the final nails in for an investing seminar that's going to be a full day one.
Okay.
So for up until this point, we've just been doing, kind of 2 hours of networking, 2 hours of speaking, 2 hours of networking, done deal. We want to do something bigger. We want to do it, a full day kind of thing where it's literally a day of learning. Yeah, there will be networking breaks and all that kind of stuff. And, that is what we are as well. We are an event made for learning, but we are also a networking event, right? So we don't ever want to lose that as our core. But we also recognize that there's so many opportunities within real estate that, a lot of realtors don't even know about too, right? Realtors, mortgage brokers, whatever. There's so many different ways that you can make your clients money, or that your clients can, get into an industry, whether it be through a JV partnership, whether it's, getting them funding through, privately funded deals, whatever type of little things that we can do to help facilitate learning about other ways for you to then go back to your clients and say, oh my gosh, I just learned about that. Well, I mean, you might not want to say it that way, but they learn about something and they can take it back to their clients in the real world and actually use that to help make their clients money, but also in turn grow their business.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's all that we want to do.
Yeah.
Right. Is help people become as successful as they can possibly be.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what the goal is for this next seminar, right? It's for people to come out, learn about things that you might not have necessarily known about, and, really, really be able to take those things that you're learning and implement them back into your business and say, I just generated 3 new deals this last year, or, whatever, because of the things that I learned at this one seminar. Yeah. Like, if I can go and if me and Charles can throw a seminar and then have, one the next year, or, in a few months, and have someone come up to us and say, I just did 2 deals because of what I learned at your seminar, that'll be worth everything that we put into that one event. Like,
I think that whole concept, when you go to an event, it's, you network, you meet people, you learn, it's great. There's a ton of value that comes from it. Yeah. But I would definitely love to see an event that you go to and there's a deal at the end of it, some sort of deal that could come, because then it's just like the value of that becomes so much more. So if you can get access to some properties that maybe you wouldn't have, normally had access to, or come across a concept or something that you can implement yourself or for your clients or for investors or whatnot, like you said, JVs or whatnot, I think that would just be a tremendous amount of value. So I love the idea of the one-day event. Looking forward to learning more about that and see it as it rolls out. In terms of, the other thing that I really like about what you've been doing with the housing cooperative is the fact that you've done it in Niagara. Yeah, you did one in Toronto, but I guess it's just bringing these types of guests to these areas where you normally traditionally wouldn't have these types of events, right? So is that something that you're thinking of? Is that in terms of the locations and where you're gonna bring the event? What are the locations you're thinking about and what does that look like?
It's a conscious effort for sure, right? Like the OG conference is the Buzz conference, right? The Buzz conference, I mean, they are doing one in Burlington in September, but like when they started, it was very much GTA, right? Whereas for us, we said, okay, look, they're doing amazing things, but what about the rest of us, right? Like I'm fine to drive an hour to go to the Buzz conference. That's not an issue. But I mean, it's also really nice to have a conference that comes to you, right? Like at the end of the day, for me to go to the Buzz conference, yes, it's a full day event, but it's also, there's networking afterwards. So it turns into, okay, I'm probably going to stay over in there and then I'm going to be out of commission until, 10 the next day, whatever it becomes, right? So it becomes, a pretty big time commitment, right? Whereas if we're able to come to your city, throw an event there and allow you to learn literally, 20, 30 minutes from your home and then you just drive home at the end of the night, like that's also a really good thing too. So that's kind of where we said, listen, let's start out in, obviously our backyard in Niagara, but we'll take it to those cities that, these other bigger brands probably won't focus on, right? They might at some point, but for us, that's where we're focusing on those smaller areas. Obviously, we went to Toronto because, it's just one of those places where you kind of have to, right? But for us, like, on the radar, we have like Ottawa, Kingston, looking at Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge, Guelph, going out to Windsor, all those different types of places where, like if you look at Windsor's a great place to invest as well too, right? So, there's different tactics that you can do. And the beauty behind that too is like for each of these events, we typically team up with someone that's local to the area that they are throwing the event, just so that, we have the inside scoop, right? Who do we have to have at this event? Who should we really be focusing on, getting those invites out to, and making sure that we have as speakers as well. Is there someone that's local that would be an absolute legend for people to, come out and learn from? And, we take into account what the locals are actually looking for, right? We don't just say, yep, this is smack dab, this is going to be exactly what they want, copy and paste. No, like do your research, right? And that's something that I think we're doing a little bit differently than some of the other conferences or the networking events that you do see. Is we're becoming a bit of a traveling circus, I guess you could say. But, that's the goal, is kind of just branch out to these places that are underserved, right? And provide them, high level value for a very affordable ticket price.
I feel like the ticket prices that you've had have been well underpriced, and it's the amount of value you get from these events is amazing. So look forward to supporting you at these events and seeing how the rest of them roll out. On the business side, like, what are your plans moving forward? 3 years in the game, obviously, you came into the industry and maybe tell me a bit about that first year. Like what do you think, really allowed you to have a successful kind of first 12, 18 months?
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll get into the first year first, and then we'll kind of go into what I got planned. But those first 12 to 18 months, like I think, so I started in March, and I think I took 3 full days off that whole year, the remainder of the year. And when I say full, I mean like no showings, took calls still like from current clients, but didn't go and like engage in some activity, try to get new leads, generate new business, and try to do deals, right? But like that also transferred into doing 14 deals in 10 months, right? So it's one of those things where I said, look, like you're at an age now where like take this seriously, like go all in. And I did, like I busted my ass for 10 months and just really, really went hard. And like I still do, but it's not on the level of, okay, yeah, let me go out and not have any type of a life, right? Because I have established a bit of a brand now, but that's something that, you know, it really jump-started my career, where there were a lot of other people starting in the industry at the same time, but I mean, they had relationships, they had, you know, kids, whatever it was that, and I'm not saying those things hold you back, but they are time commitments, right? I had none of those, right? So for me, it was like, I'll work 16 hours a day, I'll work 18 hours a day, I don't care. I went and cleaned a house that I had listed on Christmas Day. Like, I don't care, because I had showings that went through on Boxing Day. The house had been dirty, so I went and I cleaned, or not on Boxing Day, on Christmas Eve, and then on Boxing Day we had showings booked. Okay, so I need to go clean on Christmas. Done. I'm doing it, right? And it's that level of commitment that is, no client is ever going to leave you if that is what you're giving them.
Yeah.
Right. Like, period. Nobody could steal that client from me ever.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of those things where it's not cockiness, it's confidence in what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
Right. And if you are able to bring those things to the table, like, the sky's the limit. Yeah. Right. So I think that was kind of the biggest differentiator for me, kind of within those first, 12 to 18 months that really kind of jump started my career and allowed me, to set myself up for success, but also that in my social media presence. If you looked at my phone screen time during those first 12 to 18 months, it was ridiculous. Yeah. Like, probably on average, like 10 to 12 hours a day. Right. And like, when I say 10 to 12 hours a day, that was 10 to 12 hours a day of like me sitting on Instagram and DMing other agents and like building up my brand on social media, because I was working for Andrew Perry, the king of social media. Yeah. Right. And that always was ingrained in me. Like, look at what he's able to do through his social media. I need to be the same person. Right. And that just became a thing for me. It was like, okay, I need to be him. I need to do exactly what he's doing. And, so I was commenting on everyone's photos, talking to everyone in the DMs, and just building relationships, offering free advice and that's the thing too, that I think I did a little bit differently than a lot of other newer agents. A lot of other newer agents, they would just add, the agents that were, so like, let's say you're in, month 6, but I was in month 6 at Revel, where I've been going through Revel Ed. I had the knowledge of, someone who's in, in their second year in the industry just because of Revel Ed. So I went and I said, okay, look, I'm going to start adding these newer people in the industry who are at other brokerages who have no clue what's going on, and I'll help them if they have questions. Like, and I was just someone that, like, I had the time. So like, if you guys got questions, yeah, great, hit me up. Right. Mm-hmm. And it was just like those relationships that I was able to build by doing little things like that. Like, those are people in the industry now that like are so thankful for the things that I was doing for them. Mm-hmm. Right. Like, I literally remember when I think I was just over a year in the industry. I sat with a girl whose mom was in the industry already, but then the daughter was planning on getting her license, but she had failed the exam twice. Right. And she was like breaking down, saying, I'm done. Like, I'm not doing it. And like, I just sat down. I was like, listen, do you want it? Like, if you want it, it's a great career. Like, mm-hmm. You'll have a ton of fun, but you have to commit. Like, that is your hurdle. Your hurdle is, are you willing to commit? Yes or no? And that's it. Yes or no? That's it. Right. And it's being able to sit down with her. She's a full-fledged realtor now. Right. And it's like, she was so close to quitting, but every time I see her now, she's just like, yeah, thank you so much. Like, and it's just like those moments, like, those are priceless. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, to be able to know that like you literally help someone like get their license and stay in a career that now they love. Like, come on, man. Yeah. Like, you can't say that that's not the best feeling on earth. Right. And it's like doing little things like that. I'll do that all day. Right. If people have questions anytime, like, you shoot me a DM anytime. Right. And that's who I am to my core. Right. Yeah. Like, I love to help people. And yeah, that's just who I always will be. Right. So, that's one of the things that I think kind of separated me, where, a lot of people in the industry as well have had good experiences with me just in that sense as well.
I think that's the most powerful thing that we can do as real estate professionals. And it comes with, helping other realtors, but just helping people. Like, there's just so much opportunity where you can literally change somebody's life through real estate. And that concept of, being able to whether it's get into the industry and build a successful career, or, you know, get into a home and start building some equity. That's the most powerful thing. And I think that's, you know, at the end of the day, that's, you know, if you have the right intent in this business, that should be the main goal, is to be able to help other people do that.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Cool, man. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, so that's the background, the history, how you got in. Tell me, like, what's the plan? What's the plan moving forward? You said you built the brand, you know, you got the social media, you got everything going. Like, what's the plan moving forward in terms of, you know, the real estate? Are you looking maybe start a team?
Well, so that's the thing, right? So I mean, like, as of right now, the brand's me, right? The brand is just me. But I do have people working on a logo, everything, brand kit, and everything right now. So we're working on that, and that'll be done within the next couple of weeks. So moving forward, it's about really kind of putting a stamp on, you know, my actual brand and saying, nope, this is the brand, and moving forward, and kind of moving in a direction where there is more stuff being put out on social media, because I have kind of taken the foot off the gas a little bit with that. So really just getting back to my roots when it comes to that stuff. But at the end of the day, for me, I don't want to go and start doing that stuff until my brand is ready to actually launch.
Yeah.
Right. So we're waiting for that. When that's ready to go, then there will be a lot more content coming out,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
Yeah.
I miss being in front of the camera. So
That's
we'll definitely be doing a lot of that stuff, which is cool. I mean, I love that side of the business so much, because it's genuinely, it's just a lot of fun.
It's fun, yeah.
Right? It's a lot of fun. You get to meet people. Like, I love going out and doing videos in the community, because you meet so many cool people that are just like, oh, what are you doing? Right? Like,
Yeah.
they don't see realtors. Like, I shot a video the one time, literally wearing, like, I was wearing a football jersey, short little shorts, friggin' like basketball shoes, and like I had my hair back then, but like wearing friggin' like a massive bandana and stuff, and like playing tennis on a tennis court in the middle of Beamsville, right? Like, and people are just like staring, right? And then it's just like, oh, hey, like, how's it going? And they're just like, what are you doing? Right? And it's just like, when you tell them you're a realtor, it's doing a funny video, like, they're just like, what? Like, people are just like, they do that, right? And it's just like, it's so funny, because for us, we follow all the funny realtors on Instagram, right? We see it all the time.
Yeah.
The average consumer does not. That's one thing that, if I can give one piece of advice to people, if you're thinking about getting into doing social media for your business, you need to recognize that, like, just because your feed is like 89% realtors, that's because you're in the business.
Yeah.
When you, like, ask your mom to pull up her Instagram.
Yeah.
And literally scroll for 5 minutes and see if you see another realtor besides you.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee that you won't.
Yeah.
Right? And that is the beauty of it, is it's just like, we're so dumbed down by the fact that we see it all the time. The average consumer doesn't. So go out, put yourself out there, and be as original as possible, because I promise you, like, originality will always win out. And if you're able to do that and do it well and just get comfortable with it, you will grow.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've done more deals through social media than any other outlet, whether it be my personal sphere of influence, door knock, any other type of lead generation hasn't come close to social media for me. Right? So it's one of those things where, if you do it well and you just get outside of your comfort zone, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. I think the worst thing for a lot of realtors is having all these realtors in your feed, and then you know, you're thinking you get motivated in terms of doing it. But yeah, it's true. It's the average person may be following one or two realtors, and you know, there's a huge opportunity.
And it's that, man. Like, some of them follow none, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So that's kind of the route that I do see myself kind of going back towards, and like, there's plans for all of that. But in terms of like building a team, at the end of the day, like, there's going to be a lot of work that I have to put into really building up my brand before I would ever consider building a team.
Yeah.
It's just like, I really need to get back to building up my personal brand before I go the route of, let's build out a team or anything like that. You know, obviously there's opportunities to work with me, you know, there's those types of opportunities and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of like actually, you know, putting in my brand and saying, okay, you are now on, no, not yet. Down the line, it's possible.
Just based on this conversation, obviously knowing you, like, I know you just have those leadership skills, right? Yeah. So that's why I think it's, I kind of see it like there's an opportunity there for you in terms of doing it, right? That's why I asked. But no plans in terms of in the near future.
Not in the near future, man.
Yeah.
There's so many other things that need to be worked on first.
Yeah.
Right. Like I would never say that I'm a perfectionist. I'm not.
Yeah.
And I think perfectionism kind of ruins entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Right. Where like you have to do things by trial and error.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where the moment that you're seeking out perfection, you're wasting time.
Yeah. Perfection is like the excuse.
Yeah.
You make to not do something. Right?
Perfection is the enemy of progress.
Yeah.
Right. And like that for me, I think, is really, really why I look at it as, okay, look, like I need to get better at a certain few things before I would feel comfortable starting a team or anything like that. But I do agree, like, I've always been, in leadership roles throughout my life. So it's not a far stretch for me to say, yeah, I'd start a team by any means. Like it's not a far stretch, but it's just not something that I'm looking at as like a 6-month goal or even a 12-month goal. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'm open to.
Yeah. So this podcast, this shoot, is gonna be the jump off for the content moving forward.
Absolutely,
We're gonna go hard now.
Yeah.
Let's go.
We've seen a lot more.
That's
jobs,
it.
yeah.
Let's go. So, obviously you made a transition to XP. Can you maybe tell me a little bit about what was the thought process behind joining our organization?
Yeah, I mean, so EXP as a whole, like I've heard about it ever since I got into the industry, right? And it's one of those things where it's so different, right? Where it becomes it's somewhat tough to wrap your head around at times. Where you've heard of real estate for so long, and it's always this way, this way, this way. But when something's going completely opposite direction, it's like, what is that, right? So I've always had questions about it, but there was obviously some kinks that needed to be worked out, and that's why there used to be times when people would join EXP, leave, whatever. But now you're starting to see some of those people come back to EXP, and you're just like, okay, that means there's a lot of things that have been worked out, right? So for me, I mean, in terms of like EXP as a whole, there's just a lot of really good things that make sense, whether it be the rev share, whether it be there being a cap to how much your brokerage actually takes from your commission, whether it's, the low fees, like they're peanuts compared to some of the fees that I've paid, right? And the thing for me that really broke it down for me to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to join this organization over the other ones that have approached me from EXP. I mean, culture. I'm a big fanatic when it comes to culture. Like I said, like I've been in leadership roles for so long that I'm typically the one that creates the culture. So for me, where I was able to tap into the culture that you guys and Rick have already created, like it's a great culture, and it's one that is super, super supportive, one that, you have each other's backs. You guys literally are working as a unit in every single aspect of the business. Whereas, some of the things that I found with other groups within the EXP, it's like, yeah, okay, they're a fun group, they're, an interesting group, they're great. But for me, it's about, okay, how do I get to my end goals as quickly as possible so that I can go and I can create new ones, right? Like your goals shouldn't be these lofty things that you think you're never going to achieve. They should be lofty things that you find the quickest route to, or the most efficient route to.
That.
Right. And that for me is the main reason that I said, okay, look, like as great as some of these other organizations are, this is going to be the best one for me and my goals. Yeah. Right. And that's no digs at the other organizations that had reached out, but it's one of those things where you always have to do what's best for you and your business, period. And like that is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned by being in real estate, is, you and your business are always number one, period. Like that's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, and that's the thing too. Like I started at Revel, and one of the main things that drove me to Revel was their Revel Ed, right? And it was the ability to come and learn all these things that, they're putting these classes on and these videos and all this kind of this learning that like other brokerages, they just don't have. Right. And it was an amazing asset for me in my first year. Like I when I say that, like, I had the knowledge of someone who was a second-year agent within my first 3 to 6 months. I did. Like it was a massive jumpstart, and gave me the ability to go out confidently when I'm having negotiations with another realtor. I was able to do so from the place of confidence as opposed to, oh, let me put them on hold. Okay, like what do I do here? Like I was able to literally just stay on the phone and be confident and stand my ground and know what I'm talking about, right? And it's like those types of things you guys already have. Rick has his whole coaching system that we can put the new agents through, that we can allow people to come in and tap into as well, right? So that's a huge added bonus that like that you just sign up, you join, perfect, there you go.
Yeah.
You have access now, right? As opposed to, at other brokerages, it becomes, okay, so that's why we have such a higher fee for your first year, right? And it's those types of things that are built into your business that allow it to be a much more collaborative space, right? And I think as well, when I look at kind of what you guys have going on, like, you guys have a massive office out in Mississauga. You have this office here in Burlington. There is plans to buy office space out in Niagara, right? Like those things for me are huge because those are the biggest things that are the drawbacks when it comes to other agents joining EXP, right? And if you're tackling those, the sky's the limit, right? Because across pretty much everything else, like EXP has the edge, right? Like if you're looking for brokerage support because you really don't like doing paperwork, you really don't like doing these things, fine, you can go pay for it at a different brokerage. Or you can join EXP, find 4 other people that feel the exact same way and hire an admin that works for the 5 of you. Like you just need to be a business operator, right? And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize about us in our industry. We own our business.
That's it.
You are a business. You are not an employee. It gives off employee vibes when you are saying, I need them to do my paperwork. Like that makes you sound like an employee. Be a business owner. Go and say, okay, I'm going to find 3 other business owners that have the same pain that I have when it comes to paperwork, and we're going to hire an admin together. Perfect. Done. Pay the salary. Bada boom, bada bing. Right? Like those are the things that you can go and you can tackle yourself, and you can do at a much lower rate than what you're doing currently at your current brokerage rate. It's those types of things that I just look at and I just say, long term, when you really think about it, and you can really kind of break things down, and you think critically and logically, it just makes sense. So
I love the way you put it in terms of critically and logically, and if you stick to those things, and and that's what I did. Like I'm fairly new. I'm only 6-7 months deep at the organization, and I spent a year thinking critically and logically and looking at various different opportunities and options, and obviously I made my decision critically and logically based off the different factors, some of which you mentioned. But I think a lot of things that you just mentioned really resonated with me. One thing is, if you have I feel like every realtor has that entrepreneurial gene in them. I think everyone needs it, to a certain extent. But if you truly are, an entrepreneur, and like you said, you look at it from a business standpoint, and I think those are the type of people that will really understand, and then really those are the type of people that it makes sense. The model really makes sense for, because you really have to have that business mindset in terms of looking at it. And then the other thing, like the way I always kind of looked at it at the end of the day, when I said, okay, what is the most important thing to me as an agent, as somebody that has a team, and I was at that point looking at opening a brokerage. Like, what are the most? And for me, it's 2 things. You mentioned culture, but the people you're working with, right? Like, I think that's crucially important. But you also mentioned what's best for me and what's best for my family is gonna supersede that. So for me, that comes with value. So the people and the value that you're able to attain, and that's, I think, when it comes to a brokerage, if you're to dumb it down, those are the 2 most important things. And if you just really do your due diligence on the value proposition, and there's some good people around, then you can really, I think those are the critical factors when it comes to making a decision of where you really build your real estate business.
So this is the thing for me, right? Like the way that I always look at kind of like the sentiment within the industry is that EXP's over here, there's a line drawn in the sand, and then there's the rest of the brokerages, right? And like maybe between brokerages, that's how they feel, right? They all hate EXP, and EXP is kind of just coming in and taking agents from them. But I think the way that people really need to start looking at things from an agent perspective is all the brokerages are in a circle. You're in the middle. Point to the one that makes the most sense to you.
That's it.
Right? Because like at the end of the day, like you talked about, it's about where is the value for you, your business.
Yeah.
Fuck everything else. Excuse my language, but genuinely fuck everything else.
Yeah.
Because it does not matter what one brokerage thinks about EXP and what EXP thinks about that brokerage. All that matters is what is going to help you and your business, and that's it. And if you think it's EXP or if you think it's Remax, all the power to you.
Yeah.
I could care less. All I want is you to choose what's going to make the most sense for you and your business.
That's it.
Right? And that's the thing for me, and that's exactly what I did, right? Like, I learned a lot at Revel. I learned a lot at Remax. Both were great. But for me, long term, looking at it now, where do I want to be in 5-10 years? It has to be the one that is going to end up paying me for running a business and building a brand, not the one or the ones that are allowing me to continue further building their brand with no real payment for doing so.
Damn.
Right?
I got you. Yeah.
That's kind of the thing that was a kicker for me.
That's it, man. That's it, man. That's a bomb. Yeah. And I think, previously you mentioned, like, it was a good point. You said that some people, joined EXP and they left, locally speaking, because obviously EXP is a global brand, multiple countries. I think we're over 20 countries. Obviously the primary growth is in the States, and now we're just really, we got EXPCon in Canada this year. So we're building our presence in Canada. And obviously in Ontario, last numbers I saw were around 3,500 in Ontario, which is still huge, but it's still very early. And I see, the potential growth that, is going to be seen here is, considering what happened in the States, is pretty significant. So I do still see a lot of growth, but you did mention something about like people coming, people leaving, and now people are coming back. And I think, I really strongly believe, just from, some of the due diligence and just seeing some of the changes corporately and internally here in Canada, I do see, like a significant amount of improvements have been made corporately in Canada and Ontario. Like the level of care, the level of commitment and investment that's been made in Ontario for the brokerage is significant. So, especially like with us, looking at opening some of these offices and just things like that, and the community and the culture around what we're doing, it's a lot different than it was, say, a year ago or a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. And some of those people are kept coming back. Christine Mitchell, she was the broker and the managing broker at Remax Niagara. She joined our organization recently, which I'm super excited about. So those are the type of people that now are going to help us, from a brokerage standpoint, from a compliance standpoint, from a process standpoint. And we're bringing on a lot of great people. And it's, I just see that, things are improving significantly. So it's just interesting to see that and those changes. But I love how you put it in terms of framing it. And again, for me, it's just people and value. And if you find the right people you want to work with, and you surround yourself with those kind of people that are successful, that are doing it, the way I looked at it is, you mentioned Rick's course. It's an amazing course. There's another course from some of our partners in the States. We're working on a course. So it's just the way I look at it here is one of the reasons why I joined and when I looked at it was, I have direct communication with teams all over Canada and in the States that have 500, that do 500 deals a year, 1,000 deals a year. Like I got a gentleman, direct contact, does over 1,000 deals in the States, the biggest team in the States. And any question I got, he's there and he's helping me out. And he's got resources and he's got courses that he's given me. So now it's like, not only do I have one education program, I got dozens. And these are from the guys that are actually there, managing the teams, running the teams, agents that are, solo agents doing certain amount of production, and they're willing to share their information. Everybody's open, and so the amount of resources from that standpoint, from an education standpoint, it's in a sense it's overwhelming. And just, in
the best way possible.
In the best way possible. And what we're really, working on and one of the things we're struggling is, like, there's so much information and everybody needs different information, right? Yeah. If you're an agent that's just looking to go hard and farm in a certain area and, you know, you have these kind of traits and these things that you really like to do, then that program is going to be different than if you're looking to grow a team, right? And then that education is going to be different. And if you're, you know, if your goal was to maybe build a brokerage and you've joined us as a brokerage and, you know, you're coming on board because we have a new program where, you know, there's a lot of incentives for brokerages to join us. If that's kind of where you're at, then that's a whole different level, you know, that's a whole different, you know, business model and different type of information you need. So I just feel like, you know, we have the people and the resources there. So it's pretty amazing. But that's awesome, man. Listen, we're over an hour deep, man. Collaboration over competition, my man. Oh, let's go, bro.
Let's go, bro.
That's it.